Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. The war was over. The soldiers were killed in war. Now, they are zombies. My name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. This is Backlook Cinema, the podcast. It's our 144th episode. We watched movies of yesteryear, the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then tell your family, tell your friends, and tell those soldiers over there with the weird headgear about our humble little show. Ladies and gentlemen, I am glad to be back with you. I have a very special guest. She has been with us before. If you've been with us on our episode 119, we talked about Teen Wolf together. She's an amazing voice in the podcasting space, and she's enthusiastic about talking about movies. That's why I love having her on the show. Tonight or today or whenever you're listening to this at this point in time, I want to reintroduce to you an amazing person that I am glad to know. She is the host of Retromade, your pop culture rewind. She is also the co-host of One More Round, the Rocky series podcast. Let us give a warm welcome to my very special guest host, Katie.
Hello, thank you so much, Zoe, for having me back, especially for this. I can't believe that I had not seen this movie before, so I'm excited to talk about it. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk with you. This is going to be so awesome. So what Katie is referencing, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the movie already. What Katie is referencing is Universal Soldier. So when we talk, right now in the season of Retromade, you are talking about Kurt Russell and what's the other guy? I can't remember his name.
Patrick Swayze. So my season one is the ultimate everyman is who I've deemed them. So these, so a little bit different than the superstar muscle maniacs that we're going to talk about today.
Right. But the reason I bring that up is because they cross paths with a lot of the people that appear in this movie that we're about to talk about. So like if you take a guy like Kurt Russell, he's also appeared in similar types of movies as Universal Soldier. And one of the movies that you talked about on Retromade was, what was it called? The thing with the pyramid.
Stargate.
Thank you.
Same director.
Right.
Same producer, same writer. There's a lot of similarities. Yeah. And some of the same actors from Stargate and this movie.
There you go. As you can see, my memory is just failing. It's just going off and on. I got Swiss cheese memory, but we're going to push through it. But yes, as it's like a writer director team, and like ever since they first teamed up, they it's like they've been writing movies together ever since. So here's the thing with you have Kurt Russell, you have this movie, which shares some things, which have some similar things in common. I don't know if Patrick Swayze crossed paths with any of the actors, so I guess I'm mainly focusing on Kurt Russell.
I mean, Roadhouse has got a lot of the fighting, and Point Break, so there's some similarities. Right. Action guys. It's just that Kurt and Patrick are more like the every person version. Right. And like Dolph and Schwarzenegger and Van Damme and Stallone are like the superhero.
Right. Yeah. But see, Kurt Russell and you just said his name, Sylvester Stallone. Yep. Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone, they were in a movie together. So these
Tango and Cash, I covered. Yeah. So if you guys like these guys, come check out my show. Hello.
Right. Absolutely. So that's the thing. These guys they're kind of in the same area of influence, right? So that's why I was excited to get you to watch this one. And I figured that, and I know that sci-fi is not your jam, like Stargate's not your favorite movie, so you're not going to delve into the science fiction-y of it all. So I'm kind of is Soldier, the movie Soldier, is that on your radar anywhere?
Yeah, we just haven't covered it yet.
Okay, awesome. I'm excited to hear that episode. It's sci-fi-ish. It's is linked to another very well-respected sci-fi movie franchise. And
Oh.
so I'm excited for you to. It's not going to be obvious to you because it wasn't. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even obvious to me until.
Oh, well then I'll
Right.
totally miss
So
it.
yeah, don't
But I'll
worry
do
about it.
research. I always do research for the
Whoever
show.
the guest is if you don't find it in your research, then you'll find it. Your guest will probably know about it if they're
Okay.
familiar with the movie. So the thing about I'm excited for you to see Soldier because it's follows along similar sci-fi lines. So it's like I'm always trying to drag people into my genre.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's probably why I haven't seen this because yeah, I'm not into sci-fi, but I mean Jean-Claude and Dolph Lundgren, are you kidding me? How did I miss
Right,
this?
right, right. And this is not going to be the last time that they appear together. Also, let's see, what was the other thing that I was going to ask you about? Oh, let's get into one more round. So, and that you delve into the Rocky mythos. So, it's curious because you've actually been getting a lot more to eat when it comes to the Rocky franchise. It's been like it returns with Creed. So you have Creed 1, 2, and 3. There are probably going to be some more Creed
Oh
movies.
yeah, there's going to be a Creed 4.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. So how do you feel about the continuation of the Rocky franchise? How has that changed your podcast? What is that looking like?
Well, interestingly enough, one more round is so the show has already gone through all of the Rocky movies, 1 through 6. So Rocky through Rocky Balboa. And then they also covered the first 2 Creed movies. And so I joined at the tail end of that. And then people love Rocky movies. So we started all over again. And that's why it's called One More Round. But we're only going to go through Rocky Balboa in this version. Then we're going to cover a bunch of other boxing movies, but we do talk about the continuation. So all of us Rocky nerds got really excited, obviously, when there was Rocky Balboa, which came like 16 years after Rocky 5. And then nothing until Creed. Creed was a huge deal in the Rocky world. We were so excited about it. And that's where Sylvester Stallone, I think he won a Golden Globe, but he kind of gets ignored a little bit in Hollywood. But phenomenal job. And then this does tie into Universal Soldier. Creed 2, I was especially jazzed because it is sort of like a direct sequel to Rocky 4 in that it continues the Drago story. So Dolph Lundgren played Ivan Drago in Rocky 4, and then he reprised his role in Creed 2, and he was phenomenal in it. I loved Creed 2. Creed 3, for a lot of the Rocky people, we didn't like as much for a few reasons, one of which is that Sylvester Stallone was not in it. I also feel like it was not nearly as good as the first 2.
Right, right.
But yeah, so and there's, Sly's got his Tulsa King show. He's got his Family Stallone, like reality show. So there's lots to talk about in news around the Rocky world, in addition to just getting back to the basics and talking about the actual movies.
Awesome. So I'm glad that you have a lot of material with Rocky. Have you had a chance to have like professional boxers on your podcast to talk about it?
Well, Ryan, who's the main host, he used to do a lot of interviews, and so I would recommend checking it out. Like he interviewed the composer, a lot of the composers. He's interviewed some of the actors. I think he did have a real life boxer on. I forget his name. He was a little bit of a character, but less interview centric now and more just like us 3 guest hosts, shooting the shit a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I imagine that maybe there'll be an episode where you have a boxer like analyze the moves or the position or whatever,
Mhm.
'cause,
Yeah, I mean, it's not super realistic, as we all know.
right.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
necessarily super realistic, but I'm sure that there are things that you can like compare what like earlier movies look like compared to later movies. Like there is an incident where in Rocky 4 where Sylvester wanted Dolph Lundgren to hit him for real and sent him to the hospital by accident.
Yep.
But it's
that's what happens.
and
that's a true story.
And Dolph knows how to fight. Like, he's a for real fitter. He's a martial artist.
Like a karate champion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny also in this world, it's sort of like art imitating life now with Mike Tyson's upcoming fight with Jake Luke. What's the Paul kid's name? Whatever.
I think it's Jake
something Paul.
Something, yeah.
Forget his first name.
Yeah,
anyway,
me too.
It's essentially the same. It's Rocky Balboa, where you have like basically like a 60-ish-year-old ex-champion fight a young kid that everyone is annoyed by.
Right. Is the kid in the movie, is he a boxer or is he just
Anthony Tarver is his name.
Right.
He's not a good actor because he's a real boxer.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
See, there's the thing about that. It's just that, Jake Paul he's not really a professional boxer. I think that's his name. Because they're brothers, so I don't know which is which. They both get into antics, and I get them confused. So I think there's one called. I think there's one named Luke, and I think there's one named Jake. So forgive me, my fellow Americans, if I get these names wrong. But so they've had like professional fights before. So there's a fight with Floyd Mayweather. There was that fight. And I think there were
I forgot about that.
Right. And there were a couple other fights where he fought professional boxers. But and now he wants to fight Mike Tyson. But it's like so it's not like he doesn't have skills. Like, he obviously has skills, but it's like Mike Tyson is a completely different caliber. Like, he'll bite your ear off, man.
It's true. Yeah, I am actually kind of looking forward to it to see what happens. But I mean, Mike Tyson's almost 60, so I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, he's I've seen his training videos. He can still throw a punch. I just worry about whether or not he can still take it. Like, everybody's like, yeah, Mike Tyson, he's huge, he's a monster, but he's still a 60-year-old man. Like, it's not going to be easy for him to recover no matter how this goes. So
great point. That's
going to be interesting. But it's great talking to you once again. Why don't you let the people know where they can find you?
Well, I am available. Retromade is available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, there's a YouTube channel, Retromade Podcast. So please check it out. I do a visual, so you can check me and my hosts out and see what we look like and so I usually incorporate clips and stuff into the show too. Same thing with the One More Round, Rocky Series podcast. It's also on YouTube and anywhere you find podcasts. And also head on over to Facebook. Join the fun there.
Awesome. So and you have a Facebook page?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yep. So I'm such a nerd, man. I assume both One More Round and Retromade have separate Facebook pages, or is it all one page?
No, it's completely separate. Yep.
Okay.
And actually, like, the One More Round is it's the Rocky and Rambo. It's a group. It's not a page. Right. So you got to be accepted.
Oh, there you go. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us once again. Let's move over to our first segment. That's the opening credits. Reintroduce this movie to our audiences and tell us a little bit about it.
Well, in order to deal with the ever-increasing threats to America, a rogue army officer developed the top-secret Universal Soldier Strike Force. The soldiers in this special operations team are uniquely trained and equipped. They're stronger, faster, and have more endurance than normal humans. Additionally, they are somewhat robotic, have no free will, and will perfectly execute their orders. 2 of these soldiers start to malfunction and start to regain their ability to think for themselves. One of them just wants to go back home. The other is a homicidal maniac.
Yes, absolutely. And we are talking once again about Universal Soldier, which was released July 10th, 1992, produced by Studio Canal, Caracal Pictures, rest in peace, and Indie Prod Company Productions. It grossed over $36 million in the US and Canada and $102 million worldwide on a reported budget of $23 million. Now, let's adjust that for inflation so we can wrap our minds around this. So the gross in today's dollars would be about $80 million. In the US and Canada, and worldwide, that would translate to $227 million. So if it released today, it'd be doing pretty good on a $51 million budget. I will say, though, that the thing that saved this movie was the international audience, because domestically, it only made $80 million, and it would need $100 million just to break even. So that international audience really saved his bacon, and that's what spawned all the sequels. Later on, we're going to talk about all of the sequels. There's so many. I
mean, you're right about that, and I just to that point, I think it's hilarious. I mean, obviously, Dolph and Jean-Claude, the stars of this, but they're playing American soldiers, but they're both European with accents. So I just find that why. So the international audience makes sense.
Yeah. I had not considered that. Yeah. But it's not like Dolph was like a huge actor, like in Europe. Like he's not this huge actor that was huge in Europe and then came over to America. True. And neither was Jean-Claude. But
no, I think it's their like the Asian market, because they're both really skilled martial artists. Maybe, I don't know. That's my guess.
I think that people just love, like worldwide, they love, especially in that time, like the late 90s. They love the American action movies. I think that the same way that we love the kung fu movies that came over from Hong Kong, the international audience loves the big explosions and the fights and the bullets. They love that stuff, and we're glad to export it. But also, I think that there is some and at the time, Jean-Claude, he was an up and coming star, and people remember Lundgren from some of the other movies in it, including Rocky IV.
Rocky IV is probably the big one.
Right. So they were like, oh, I remember that guy. This is going to be a great movie.
Drago's in this?
Right. That's exactly correct. So this movie is starring Jean-Claude Van Damme as Luc Devereaux, or GR-44. You've also seen him in Expendables 2, JCVD, and The Quest.
I think he got his big break with like Bloodsport, I want to say.
Yes.
So a lot of people, yeah.
His first movie, his first movie where he started getting noticed was in No Retreat, No Surrender. He was a heavy in that movie, and basically kind of just like a thug. And then I think the next movie was Bloodsport, was like he blown up. But surprisingly, in doing my research, I found that his first role, which he's not credited for, was Break-In.
Oh, really? The breakdancing movie?
Yes. He is he's in a background crowd looking at the dancers as they dance, and he's like very prominently featured. And like it's a crowd, but he's like in front of the crowd, and it's like you can see him kind of dancing and dressed differently from everybody else in front of the breakdancers, because the crowd was like dancing around the breakdancers, and it's in the daytime, so he's prominently featured, because I looked at clips on the internet. I was like, oh, there is I thought it would be hard to find him, but it's not hard to find him at all. He's like right there.
That's funny. I watched, because I watched this movie on a DVD, there were special features, and part of that was kind of talking about both of the stars, like them growing up and them not being big, muscly dudes. They were kind of skinny kids, and how they kind of got into karate and martial arts and fighting, whatever, all of those things. And Jean-Claude said that he combined weightlifting, karate, and dancing to kind of like, that's how he formulated his moves and stuff. And he took like ballet and dance because it's beautiful, but also pretty girls.
Right.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like him. Who's next on the roster?
We have Dolph Lundgren, who's one of my favorites. I just adore him. He plays Andrew Scott, aka GR-13, most known for playing Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, also The Punisher from 1989, and He-Man in Masters of the Universe in 1987. And I would also like to point out that I loved him in Showdown in Little Tokyo. Have you seen that one, Zoe?
I want to see that one. I had not seen it yet.
It's really fun. It's really fun. And he is excellent in Creed 2.
Awesome. I want to point out that his accent is like, I want to say that he should win the award for most improved American accent. When you listen to him, you can tell he's been working on it for a while, because obviously in Rocky IV he didn't say much of anything, and he had a very thick accent, and I think he was able to like mimic the Russian accent convincingly.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't have to say much, so it wasn't that hard for him.
Yeah, he had like 8 lines.
Right. The next movie was Masters of the Universe. And while he could speak English, his inflections were all over the place. And so it sounded wrong. Like every time he said something in that movie, it sounded wrong. Like he desperately needed like a dialogue coach or a voice coach in order to help him with his lines, because none of his lines just didn't come out right. And for some people find that charming. Like Masters of the Universe is one of those movies that it's so good it's bad. But for me, it's like it was super disappointing. Like I was so mad at this movie.
I think a lot of people were. Yeah.
And then the next movie was The Punisher, where he like sounded like an American to me. I haven't seen The Punisher in a long time, but it sounded right. Like he sounded like a person who's speaking English is supposed to sound. And that's only like 2 or 3 years later, in 1989, when that movie was released. So it's like I feel like he was really working on it. But there's going to be some irony that we're going to find out later.
Oh yeah, with the accents.
Yeah, with the accent and his acting. Some irony with that later on when we cover the trivia. So the next person is Ali Walker. She plays Veronica Roberts. You may have seen her in While You Were Sleeping, When the Bow Breaks, and if you were unfortunate enough, you might have seen her in Kazam. But she hasn't been in a lot of movies, but she's been in a lot of television work, and you can still catch her on TV today.
Yeah, she's a familiar face for sure.
Yeah, she gave me a lot of Tia Leone vibe.
Yeah. I can see that.
You got a lot of that from watching her in this movie.
Mm-hmm. We then have Ed O'Ross, who plays Colonel Perry, and you might have seen him in Red Heat, Dick Tracy, and Lethal Weapon, which you must have covered in episode 36.
Yep. When you see him, he's so confident in what he is when he's in this role. When he's in this role, I like him in this movie. So he grounds this movie. He makes this movie feel real to me. That's why I liked him in this movie.
Yeah, he was good. I agree.
So the next one is Jerry Orbach. He plays Dr. Christopher Gregor. You may have heard him in Beauty and the Beast or many other animated shows or movies. He's also been in Dirty Dancing, the one from 1987, or Crimes and Misdemeanors, and of course, Law and Order.
When I didn't know he was in this, so when I watched the credits, I'm like, oh, sweet, Jerry Orbach. Who doesn't love him?
Yeah. What surprised me is I found out he was in this old cartoon I used to love called Galaxy Rangers, and he was the voice of one of the main characters. I was like, oh, it's like, I think I saw it on a YouTube video or something when I saw that he was in there. It turns out he does a lot of animation.
Well, he does have a great voice, so that tracks.
Yeah.
Leon Rippey is the next one, and I would not have recognized him. He looks insanely different, I think, in this from other things I've seen him in. So Leon Rippey plays Woodward in this, and he was also in Eight-Legged Freaks, Stargate, which I covered, and he was also in The Patriot. And if anybody has seen Deadwood, he's in Deadwood, and so that he looks like unrecognizable.
Yeah, he definitely has some interesting facial features. I imagine that he's a good character actor.
Yes.
Yeah. So up next is Tycho Wells. He plays Garth. You may have seen him in The Relic, Trespass, or The Five Heartbeats. He had one of my favorite deaths in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't die, though. I don't know. However, well, I'll save that. The next one, the next one is Ralph. R-A-L-F. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Moeller. He is another one of the soldiers, GR-76, and he is a very You all know him. He was in Cyborg, also with JCVD, and Gladiator.
Yeah. He's the big dude. He's a great big dude. That's who he is.
He is gigantic.
He is gigantic. Absolutely. Next up is Robert Trevor. He plays the motel owner, another great character actor.
Great.
He's been in 52 Pickup and Hail Caesar.
Another big dude that's very recognizable, Tom, aka Tiny Lister Jr. He is one of the other soldiers, GR55 in this, and you might have seen him in Friday, and also The Dark Knight.
Yeah, and I covered Friday with Andy Heller on Fat Dude Digs Flicks. So if you get a chance, that's just, oh shit, I forgot when I'm releasing this podcast. I'm actually releasing the show in a couple of weeks. So you will have heard the show that I'm on Fat Dude Digs Flicks a couple of weeks ago. And if you haven't heard it, then go check it out. But Friday, what did you think of Friday?
You know, I haven't seen it in like 30 years. So I remember liking it, but I don't remember anything from it.
Right,
I'll have to rewatch it. Yeah.
Well, we had a while talking about Tiny Lister. He goes around and stealing people's stuff, and then when you go ask for your stuff back, like he borrowed this dude's bike and didn't give it back, and he said, "Come on, man, why don't you give my bike back?" And then, and Tiny says, "What bike?"
With that voice,
that voice. I also liked him in The Dark Knight. He had one of my favorite scenes. Who did he play
in The Dark Knight? I haven't seen that in a while either.
He was one of the prisoners. So the Joker had put bombs on two of these boats. One was like a passenger ship and one was a prisoner ship. And he was going to blow one of them up. Like one of them was definitely going to get blown up. And like he's trying to get the people to decide which one he was going to blow up. Okay. And so, what you call it? Or it was something like that. It was something like he was going to blow something up. It was either two boats or a boat in the hospital or something like that. I can't remember. So, the police on the boat had the bomb, and Tiny was like, he went to the police and he said, "Give it to me."
Yep. He probably does animation too. I don't know. He's got a great voice.
He's got. I messed up his voice just a minute ago. I was trying to do that deep, threatening voice, but I couldn't quite get it out. It came out as a whisper. So, tell us about the director.
He is a German director, Roland Emmerich, and you all know his work very well. A little movie called Independence Day, Godzilla, The Patriot, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, and Stargate, another sci-fi movie that I covered on my show.
Absolutely. Roland Emmerich basically came on with a bang. I believe this was his first American movie. I'm going to reinforce that later on in the trivia. And the thing is that I feel like he's had some great ups and downs. So it's like Independence Day was like a tremendous high for, I think, him in his career. I think it's still probably the best movie that he's done to date. And there was a lot of hype about his movies. Every time a movie would come out, and then it doesn't quite, work sometimes.
Listen, I hated Stargate. I'll just say I freaking hated it.
Right.
But I think Roland, at any rate, he said that the success from Universal Soldier allowed him to then have a pretty decent sized budget to do Stargate with, and then go on to do an Independence Day. So this movie helped him get to where he went.
Right.
But hit some misses, I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, Stargate, for most other people, it was liked and well received.
You're right.
It did spawn several
I just
TV
hated
series. And I don't fault you for not liking it. I did Stargate on this show when my son was still doing the show with me, and he wasn't completely enamored with Stargate either. He thought the first half of the movie was way too slow, but he enjoyed the movie a little bit better after it picked up on the second half. And when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, it's a lot slower than I remember.
I don't even think that's what I didn't like about it.
Right. It might, yeah.
It didn't work for me.
Right,
It didn't
right,
work
right.
for me.
Yeah.
But I can see why, especially men of a certain age would like it.
Yeah. You're right, right. So, and movies like this aren't always going to work, but it did work in that case. And Stargate allowed him to make Independence Day. Independence Day is still just a blast to watch. And then
it is,
in spite of the plot holes. And then, he continued. And like I said, he's had some ups and downs. I think he'll continue to make movies. Like, he's not going to, I don't even think Moonfall, which is another one of his movies, I don't think that's going to wreck his career. I think he's going to still be okay.
Agreed.
So, this movie was written by Richard Rothstein, Christopher Leach, and Dean Delvin. Rothstein, I still hadn't figured it out, has written Fallen and Shoot the Sundown. He has not really written a whole bunch of things. Most of his credits are related to this movie. Leach has written The Hitter, and It's Like That, and this movie. It's and that's pretty much most of his credits. And both of these guys that I just mentioned have a few TV credits, but not a huge writing history. Delvin has written Stargate, Geostorm, Independence Day, Godzilla. He's basically a partner with Emmerich. Mm-hmm. So usually when Emmerich directs a movie, then Delvin is going to be on board to at least do a little bit of writing for the movie.
Yeah, they were both in the special features. There was, I think it was like a 2004 kind of interview for special features for Universal Soldier. And it was Dolph, Jean-Claude, Dean, and Emmerich. Yeah. Right. All talking about it.
Right. I'm glad they're still chummy. Was it like an older interview, or was it something like...
it was from 2004.
Oh, okay. All right. So... Yeah. Not they were still making Universal Soldier films at that time. Yeah. So tell us about who made the music.
So the score was Christopher Frank, and that doesn't sound familiar to me. But you guys might know him from he also scored The Green Street Hooligans, Manhood, Solo from 96, Eye of the Storm, and McBain.
Right. And
I am so not familiar with this.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of these movies except for Solo. So Green Street Hooligans is a movie with I forgot who's the Hobbit actor. That dude that played the Hobbit. I can't remember his name now. Elijah Wood. So that's a movie with Elijah Wood. And it's not like a huge movie. And I don't know much about it. I don't know, like I said, any of these other movies. Solo is a movie with Mario Van Peebles where he kind of plays a special forces soldier on the run. And I wanted to see it, but I just never got around to it. And apparently it just did okay. And, the music isn't like super fantastic in this movie. It's just in Universal Soldier, I mean, it's just serviceable. It works the way it intended. It's not like you're going to be humming the background music, or you're not going to be humming the score when you leave the movie. This isn't Star Wars, or it's not Rocky. Indiana Jones, right? You're not humming this music on the way out to theater. It's just good at serving its purpose and helping you with your emotion as the action goes along.
You know what I did notice though? When they started to roll the credits, Ice-T's Body Count was playing. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And then I realized how crappy of a song that is. All it is say body count, like over and over and over again. I'm like, oh my God. But I was like, oh, that's Ice-T.
Yeah.
Very 92.
Yeah, absolutely. Not really having a place in this movie either. It doesn't make sense. But I guess it's like, they end it with a bang. So after they ended the movie, they did that a lot in the 90s where they had like a rock song or a rap song at the end of the movie that really is not like it's not
didn't have anything to do with anything.
Right. Didn't have anything to do with anything. Not particularly relevant. Only that a lot of people died. That's what the song references. It references the body count, which I guess it's fair.
I'll take it.
So that's it for the opening credits, and now for some announcements. By the time you hear this episode, and if all goes to plan, like at the time of this recording, it hadn't happened yet. By the time you hear it, I would have had a special YouTube live event. So this would have happened on June 16th at 9 a.m. EST, and this is in honor of Juneteenth. My special guest would have been Crystal Hicks. So she's from the podcast Let's Talk About This with Crystal Hicks. And I don't know. Have you done a live YouTube before?
Not live for Retromade, but on One More Round, we have audience join us every week. So it's live, like the recording is live.
Right.
And people, they can type comments or ask questions and stuff. So we talk to that. So, but no, I have not on Retromade. That seems very daunting to me. So good luck to you, or I'm sure it has gone well.
Right.
Podcasting, recording time, magic. This will have come out after.
I hope that it works right. I'm a little bit nervous about it. It's the first, I've done one before. I had a contest, and so when I announced the winners of the contest on live. So, but this is the first time I'm doing a live podcast with a special guest. So hopefully it'll turn out all right. And so when you do your live or on One More Round, is it on YouTube? So are people watching you at the same time and typing their questions and stuff like that?
It's the StreamYard, so people can join the StreamYard, and then he streams live to, I think, like Instagram and I don't know, a few other places. YouTube, I think maybe just because of what the format of our show and that we're like covering parts of the movie gets caught. So I don't know if he does YouTube live.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right.
You know what I mean? Like copyright when it's live, that happens, but not the record. I don't know. It's a weird. YouTube's weird. YouTube's weird.
YouTube is
but
weird.
Yeah, it does stream live to, I don't know, the other places that things are streamed live. Twitch probably, Instagram, things like that.
I remember Kevin Smith. Do you know who that is?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Kevin Smith had I forgot. It was one of the movies that he had just did, but I can't remember which one. And he was doing a live stream, and he was sharing the trailer because all of his shows most of his shows are live streamed to Facebook. And he was sharing the trailer for his own movie that he directed, and Facebook shut it down for a copyright. Yep. He was like, but it's me. It's my movie.
Yeah. It's a whole weird thing.
Right. Yeah. So the next announcement I have is by the time you hear this, I would have been a guest on. I've already done it. It's already out. There's an episode of a show called Movie Lovers Unite, and we talked about Days of Thunder. I was a guest on that show.
Ooh, fun!
Yeah, it's. Have you seen that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we call it Top Gun of racing. That's
it. Totally is.
That's how we think of it.
Yeah.
And I haven't. And also, this is out. I've already done this. This episode is out already. It's Fat Dude Digs Flicks. We talk about Friday. I mentioned that earlier. The last thing that I want to announce that at the time of this recording, I'm scheduled to be a guest on Crushgasm. So I don't know when the episode is released, but by the time you hear this, the episode that I'm a guest on will probably be out. I get to talk about my crush in podcasting, which is kind of dicey because I've had a lot of guests on. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't choose one of those because that would be weird. So, but I do get to talk about my podcast crush.
Pod crush.
Yeah, my pod crush. That's a way. Yeah, that's a way of saying it. So that's going to be interesting. Check us out on Crushgasm. So that's it for my announcement. That's the most of announcements I've had in a long time. So let's go on to the next segment. Top 5 favorite parts. Oh, you know what? I didn't mention this the last time you were on the show. We just kind of talked about all of our favorite parts of the movie. But this time I was trying to narrow it down to 5 favorite parts. But before we delve into that, tell us what did you think about the movie in general?
I really liked it.
Oh,
Yeah, I did. I really liked it. I didn't, I think that happens sometimes. I didn't know what to expect. There were some humorous parts I wasn't expecting. Um, of course, we get some JCVD, but as always, it's his signature. Um, I, I'm a girl, and this is 92. Both Jean-Claude and Dolph are extremely handsome. Like, they both have the jaw, the bone, like, they're pretty handsome. They're very, very handsome. So I'm on board for that. I think Dolph was really good in this. Like, his acting, like, his homicidal maniac tendencies, but with humor. Like, he has a necklace of ear. Like, he's a wackadoo soldier that's gone off the deep end, combined with Jean-Claude's more like, we're supposed to love him. He's like the baby face, shall we say. Um, the humor in it, like the guy owning the motel guy, like there was I think there's a little bit of everything, so like I don't like sci-fi, but these guys are handsome and there's some humor and there's actiony stuff and it's like futuristic, and also there's something to say about free will and soldier, like, so I don't know, there's more to it than might first meet the eye.
right, right. You know what? Knowing the type of movies that you like, or at least from my experience of our conversations and some of the things that you talk about on Retromade, I was like, you know what? She might really like this. The reason I figured that is that it just has one sci-fi element that you kind of have to deal with, and that's with the soldiers themselves bringing them back from the dead. But the rest of it is just a pure action movie. And I was like, you know what,
Mhm.
she might be on board with this. I think that she'll like it. So I'm glad I was able to bring this to you. I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, thank you, thank you,
Right.
I very much liked it.
Right, right. Some other movies you might like. Now just playing.
No, I have a mental note of some recommendations. Yeah.
Right, right. So give us one of your favorite parts real quick.
Man, I think this is gonna be hard for this movie because I guess one of the things early on, I really liked being introduced to all the, like, soldiers in their, I don't know if it's, like, cryo. They're all on these, like, recliner type, like, stations. It's almost like they're recharging stations.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just them in a row, like, they look like humans, and they're all naked, by the way, too, like hot-bodied naked dudes, but they're, like, recharging, their battery because 'cause they're, like, part machine, part human.
Well,
I don't know.
they're not necessarily part machine. They're all human, but they're getting like special drugs. So they're getting nutrients. They're getting special drugs, and it's also especially cold where they're at. So they are. The cold temperatures help them to
Mhm.
heal. They kind of have like a healing factor, similar to
Yeah,
what
it's like a
Wolverine has.
cryo
Right, right.
thing, and
They
then
have kind of a cryo chamber that they can go into in order to heal their wounds. So it's basically just kind of like a recliner bed or recliner chair that they kind of rest in and wait for their next mission, because they don't really do anything, but they're not part machine. They're not
okay.
cyborgs. So
Well, maybe, yeah, it just seemed like that because 'cause they're very robotic, and it's
right,
like that's
right,
where
right,
it's almost like they're being recharged and they get
right,
injections. It's
right,
kind of a cool scene, like how they push a button on the recliner or the
right,
people managing it, and it's like, oh, what do they say? Like, memory depletion enabled or
right,
something. So
right,
they constantly are having to keep them from remembering things,
right.
which, things go wrong.
Right, right. Let's not
But
remember the past. Let's not do
yeah.
that now.
But and I guess, like, part of the machine thing, why I kinda said that is, like, it's like they can't be killed.
Well,
like
they can. There was one scene where they was trying to save this one soldier, but he was like too far gone. And then they have a vulnerability to extreme heat, so they can be killed. They're just extremely hard to kill, right? It's like you're not going to just shoot them a bunch of times and think that you've done a great job.
Yeah,
like
which is fun. Like that's fun. Like the when the big guy at that first mission gets just like sprayed with bullets and then he's not dead.
Right.
Well, the heating, and then Jean-Claude, there's plenty of scenes where he has to be cooled down, you know.
Right.
So that's where we get his butt. He has to like strip naked and stand in front of an air conditioner or get in an ice bath when they're on the run. So that's like a whole thing at the beginning. I need to cool down.
Right.
But then like just a little while later, that goes completely out the window and he doesn't need to cool down anymore for the rest of the movie.
Right. Right. He doesn't need to, but they do bring up that particular plot point a couple of times. But like, yeah, you're right. The rest of the movie, he doesn't, they don't bring that up too often. I think they only really bring it up twice. And then after that, they kind of leave it alone. Yeah.
Like, okay.
And it takes place over the course of several days. So you kind of have to assume that they're finding ways to cool them down over the course of the days, and they don't show it just like every single time. But it's just something that they kind of like put in there. It's like this is an element that you need to be aware of. But they don't like pay too much attention to that element once it's introduced. One of my favorite parts is, well, I just like the details that they invested in each character and in the lore of the Universal Soldiers. So one of the things you notice is that they had patches on the uniforms. One of the patches, like, there's a place where they would have their names. And so in place of their names, they would have a designation GR something. So it's GR 44 for Luke Devereaux or GR 13 for Andrew Scott, because these are soldiers who have been killed in battle. They've been saved in refrigeration, and then they have this special program to revive these soldiers and put them on new missions, essentially, because of this programs, these reanimated bodies are faster, they're stronger, they're more resistant. They don't get tired like a normal human would get tired. They're like you said, they're kind of like robots. They behave robotically because they essentially been mind wiped. So the only thing they know are the orders that they're supposed to carry out, and they're very proficient at carrying out their orders, and not much else. So they're not great for conversation. But you learn that GR stands for. Well, I had to go digging to find out what GR stands for, because they don't actually explain it in the movie. And they don't actually, it's not consistent throughout the movies, but in a couple of sources, it stands for Graves Registry. So a soldier would be referred to as GI. I'm sure you've heard that term, GI. Yeah. So GI usually stands for government issue, because soldiers are considered to be government issued. and GR stands for Grave Registry, to differentiate dead soldiers from living soldiers.
What? I didn't know that. I kept wondering what GR was for. It's like GI, but the dead version.
Right. GR is Graves Registry. I'd like that. The other thing that you had was on a part of the suit had USSF, and I had to look that up. That stands for, because if you just Google USSF, the response you'll get is United States Space Force. Now the problem is that there is a such thing as United States Space Force, so that doesn't answer the question. But if you are persistent, you'll find out that it stands for Universal Soldier Strike Force. I like. Ooh, that's cool. Also, they had a nickname for the soldiers. They would call them Unisols instead of saying like their full name. And that's kind of common in the military, where they're always shortening things out. They have nicknames for like everything. I like that. Particularly Andrew Scott. He liked to collect things. So when you see him in the past, he's collecting the ears of his enemies and putting them on a necklace. And then flash forward to the present, when he starts thinking for himself again, he starts this habit again of collecting people's ears. And he also, like when he kills the Colonel Perry, he takes the colonel's military blouse and he rips the sleeves off. And and then near the end of the movie, when there's a surprise ending when he comes back, like kind of like a horror movie monster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
And then when he comes back, he's wearing a vest with a bunch of police badges on, right?
Yes,
he loves to collect trophies. And when you see the police badges, you realize he had to kill a lot of cops to get to where he ended up at. So he loves to collect trophies, and I like that they reflected that in the film. It's just a nice touch with all of the details and the lore and whatnot.
Yeah, you're right. And further to your point, there's a scene where they're at like a country bar and all these like stereotypical like hickey type guys think they're all big and bad and they're gonna fight Andrew Scott, Dolph Lundgren, and he just like picks the guy up. He comments on his belt buckle. He's like, I like that belt buckle. He picks him up with one hand and like takes his belt off. And then later at the end, with all those police badges, he also has that belt on.
Right. Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah, he picked that dude up. And then everybody gave up as soon as that happened.
Yeah, I love how in this movie, I mean, I don't know if this is a commentary on like your stereotypical like hyper masculine man. They think they're big and tough, and so they're like, oh yeah, I'll fight you, until it's like a real fighter guy, and then they all get their asses kicked.
Right. That's similar to what happened in the the restaurant scene. But let me.
Oh yeah.
Right. Go ahead and pick out another one of your favorite parts.
Well, that one, I absolutely loved the diner scene.
Right.
So it's like they must not eat food. They must just like receive nourishment like via intravenously or something.
Right.
So when they're on the run, he and this reporter, Veronica. So Luke and Veronica are on the run, and they're in this diner, and they're kind of trying to research what has happened to him, because he's starting to get memories and stuff. And so they order lunch, and he doesn't know he has to like watch other diners how to eat, like with a knife and fork. And then he discovers that food is amazing and he loves it. And then he orders everything on the menu. But then they're like, do you have any way to pay for this? And he's like, I don't know. And so then everybody starts to fight him again. These like so-called tough guys in the diner. Like, I mean, it's like, how dumb are you? Can you not see this man is huge? Why would you fight him? And then, so he kicks everyone's ass, like with his martial arts, his, your standard Jean-Claude, like signature moves. And then he's like, I just want to eat. I don't know. And then the girl comes back in because she was at the making a call in the phone booth, and she's like everything is destroyed. The diner's destroyed. There's people out the window, and she looks through the broken window and she's like, "Do you have a nice lunch?" I don't know. What did you think of that scene? I loved it.
I loved it too. It reminds me a lot of, I think it was Lionheart where he did that. Yeah, did you see that one?
I have not seen that one.
Oh, you gotta check out some of these early Jean-Claude movies. He basically does a lot of kicking people in the face. So, but the funny thing no, it's not Lionheart. I'm sorry. It's hold on a second. Let me think about it for a second. It's Kickboxer. He's like that in Kickboxer.
Oh yeah.
So you've seen that one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So in Kickboxer is a similar scene where he's in a restaurant. He's in a like a village restaurant. It's not like a huge like suburban area. He's in Thailand. He goes to like a Thai eatery where his master or his teacher takes him to, and his teacher gets him drunk, and then he tells the patrons that this white dude over there is making fun of them, and so they all want to fight him, and so now Jean-Claude has to fight all of these incensed locals while he's drunk, and that was the lesson. The teacher was getting him to fight people as he was drunk. And basically it kind of plays out the same way it does in this,
of course
in Universal
it does.
Soldier, where, it's all kind of the same, where he doesn't want to fight but people are mad at him and he doesn't understand why. It's like it's the same thing, and it's so fun to see it.
I mean, it's a movie trope. Obviously there has to be scenes like this, but I mean, if you see somebody like Jean-Claude or Dolph Lundgren, are you, even if you think you're a tough guy and can fight the average person, they are not the average person. Would you ever have balls enough to be like, yeah, like dumb balls enough to be like, oh yeah, I'll fight you, Dolph Lundgren, Jean-Claude?
Right. Well, I think in the case of Jean-Claude, he's not that tall. So I think like
he's not tall, but he's huge. Muscly huge.
Yeah, he's definitely muscly. I actually seen him in real life once, so he's slightly taller than I am. My memory's kind of fuzzy, so I can't judge because it's like when he approached me, it seemed I didn't know who he was at first, and in my memories, it seems like he was like 10 feet tall, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't that much taller than I was. Now, there's a reason that I didn't recognize him. So there was one time I was working at this. It was like a hotel resort in Hawaii. And he happened to be staying there. And I think that he was incognito like for the first couple of days. And I was a security guard, so I don't remember if we were told in advance that he was coming or if somebody just saw him and told us that he was there. I can't remember how that worked out. I just remember that I was in a pool area. This strange guy came up to me and he said, could you show me the way to the gym? And I gave him the directions to the gym.
Of course, he asked where the gym was.
And then that's how you get there. Because it's kind of where we were at. It was like by the pool. It was kind of tricky of finding the way to the gym. So I told him how to get there. I was like, yeah, take this stairway, not that stairway. You go up, go down the hallway, and the gym is right there. He said, okay, thank you. And then I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute. That was Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, I guess to your credit, sometimes when you see people out of context, that is like
exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. And he was wearing like a hat and sunglasses. So he actually didn't want to be recognized right away at the time that he approached me. So and so it was that. I think that's all he needed. He was like the hat and the sunglasses because it covered up all of his trademark looks. And then like the next day I saw him, he was at the pool. It was like he was full on being himself with the slick back hair and just chilling out in the lounge chair at the pool, signing autographs, being Jean-Claude. Right?
Oh, really?
Right.
What year was this? Was he still
Yeah, this was a long time ago. This is at probably 90 something, like 99, 95.
Oh, in the 90s. Yeah. So he was fit.
Yeah. He was. I mean, not that he's not fit now, but yeah, this is like in peak condition, Jean-Claude. It was.
I'm jealous.
So he's but from what I remember, he's not super tall. But he's I think he's like slightly taller than I am. But I think that like a big dude in a bar in their own neighborhood, they would think that, yeah, I can take this guy, not knowing who he was, right? It's like you only know this when you don't see them fight. But with Dolph Lundgren, that's totally different because he's super tall. So I think that people would be a lot more hesitant. They would call a couple of dudes over before they challenged him.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I did like the bar scene. I want to go to, this is probably going to be one of your favorite scenes. I really liked, Ali Walker as Veronica. Even though she was giving me a lot of Tia Leone vibes, I did like her character. She also kind of reminded me of Lois Lane. And I liked how she was assisting Jean-Claude. So one of my favorite parts is like when he was talking about how he had to cool down, she didn't understand what he meant. She had gotten them a hotel room. They go in a hotel. He starts stripping off his clothes and standing in front of the cooler. This is actually related to a different part. So I'm going to merge these two parts together. So that's the first time you see him naked. And then she eventually dumps him in a bath and fills the tub with ice so that he can cool down. They escape. But the second time you see it, it's like he knows that he's being tracked because they keep the soldiers that are following him, that are trying to recapture him, they keep catching up to the both of them. So he says, I must have a tracker. I want you to find the tracker. And then it's just the way he stands there and kind of looks off and waiting for her to search his naked body. It was so funny. He's like, he had the strangest expression on his face as he waited for her to search him. And that was so funny because I think what I enjoyed about it is that he's totally oblivious to her discomfort. Like he does not understand why she would have a problem with searching his body. And so that was funny.
It's sort of like yeah, because he doesn't understand like being naked is not like a normal thing people do around other people that are not your significant other or whatever. But he's like, search for something hard.
Right.
And then she starts patting, but it's like she's uncomfortable because it's like not a normal thing to do, but she's like into it because he's hot. Like, so then she's like, oh, you work out, don't you? I don't know. I liked that scene too. And then she finds something on the back of his leg, and then he just like bends over and sticks his head between his leg, and he's like, I don't know. It was comical.
Yeah.
Like in a weird, awkward way. And then he just like stabs himself because apparently they must not feel pain either. Because he tells her, cut it out. Like he gives her a knife and to cut it out. And she's like, what? No. And then he just like stabs himself with the knife.
Right. And the thing where they don't feel pain, it seems that they're a little bit inconsistent, because in the beginning it does seem that way, where they get hit with bullets, they can stab themselves or whatever, and they don't react to it. But like at the end of the movie, there's a lot of ouch, right? It's like there's a lot. They are reacting to. Both of the characters are reacting to a lot of pain at the end of the movie. So I think that's where it's a little bit inconsistent. I think that it seems to me that they should have had the same. They should have kept that same energy at the end of the movie that they had at the beginning of the movie, because you could say that, you know, they started to lose their conditioning because they weren't continuously returning to the truck to like regenerate and refresh like they normally do. So you could say that, but there's no other way to explain it, because they shouldn't be reacting to pain at the end of the movie like they. Because they didn't have any problems with it at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of holes, and like a movie like this, there's a fair amount of forgiveness that you give a movie like this for that. Yeah. But I wonder if it's because there were innumerous holes in Stargate that I had problems. I'm like, what is going on here? Right. And so I wonder if it's an Emmerich thing. Like he doesn't care about. Like he's like not worried about the like plot consistency. That's not what the movie's about.
Right. Yeah, I think that I don't think that it's because he doesn't care. I think even he doesn't notice, or he doesn't think it's that big of a deal. I think
that's what I mean. Like he's like, that's not what you're supposed to be focusing on. Right.
And a lot of this movie is like, over the years, people are pointing out plot holes. Like the famous one in Independence Day is the being able to give an alien spacecraft like a computer virus, right? So it's like, how, in what way did the aliens have like Windows 95 or whatever? It's like
Windows 95.
How is your computer communicating with the alien computer? Like that's a huge plot hole. And there was a way to plug it up. There was I don't know if it was written in the story and they had taken it out or whatever, but they had an alien spacecraft on Earth since the 1960s. So logically, they could have found and deciphered the alien computer language, and that way developed like programs to counter aliens if they ever came to Earth or whatever. So all of that is possible, but when you look at the movie, it feels like a huge plot hole. But the movie is so exciting and so fun that for most people, they don't care about the plot holes.
We'll forgive that. Yeah.
And at the time, most people didn't know how computers worked anyway, so it didn't matter.
That's true.
When you see hacking scenes in earlier movies, like nowadays, it's kind of a joke.
Yeah. What was that one with Sandra Bullock? Yeah, I can see like the web or something like that.
Yeah, the net.
The net. The net. But actually, now that we're talking about plot holes, this isn't necessarily. I'll use it as one of my favorite scenes. Just like as a pose a question. Okay, so we open the movie. Actually, yeah. So you open the movie with the two mains being killed, right? It's Vietnam. 1969, and they both are killed like immediately. And obviously you're like, okay, well, they're the two main, so this isn't the end of the story, clearly. But that was kind of cool. That was a brave choice. I like that. And then you cut to present day, which is, we assume early 90s, right? When this movie came out. Well, what has been going on in the last 20 years? Why did it cut to I don't know. I find that very strange.
Well, it's just
have they been doing missions, these people, for 20 years?
No, I don't think that's it. I think they've been developing the technology since the 1960s. So what happens, like when they get killed, the captain, he says, just put them on ice. Nobody die here. All of these people are MIA.
Right.
And he's like, what do you mean they're MIA? They're right here. He's like, nope, they're MIA. Put them in ice. And and then he called somebody to say that they had, basically to let them know that I guess he was trying to say that they had subjects for the program. That's kind of how I interpreted that phone call.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was saving them for the Universal Soldier program. So I think what we're supposed to take from that is that this program just took a long time to develop. And so during most of this period, they were developing the program. And the soldiers, like by the time we see them, the program is basically in full effect. But it's still kind of shady in how
working things out.
The government doesn't, even though the government has sanctioned this program, it doesn't know the details of the program.
No, I feel like it hasn't, because the Pentagon, they say, would not be cool with this. So the government hasn't sanctioned it. I don't know.
Well, they know they have a special forces program, but they don't know that the program involves resurrecting dead soldiers, right?
Yeah.
As far as the government is concerned, these are men who volunteered to be in this program, and and the training is experimental. The equipment is experimental, so they know that they have an experimental program, but they don't know that these soldiers are dead people from Vietnam. And that's not something that the government would be okay with. And the colonel says, we're going to go to jail if they ever find out the details of this program. But the program has apparently been in effect since the late 60s. And then I think that when he was talking to the press, the colonel said that this was like their fourth successful mission. So they've been steadily deploying them, going on special missions. The only real plot hole in that respect is that you don't deploy U.S. soldiers on American soil. Like normally something like that happens, it's the National Guard, and they're normally there for crowd control or something like that. Yeah, but you don't usually have U.S. soldiers for enforcement action. So in a situation like with the terrorists having hostages and things, they would usually have something like the ATF or the FBI or one of those.
That's a good point, though. Right. That first mission that we see them scaling down like the Hoover Dam or whatever, it was like a rescue mission.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. No, that tracks. I guess I just thought 20 plus years seems like a long time. Right. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. They were probably on ice for most of that time. And then because they hadn't aged. So I'm guessing that they were probably on ice for most of that time until they perfected the program. And then they started thawing them out in groups and started giving them drugs and somehow programming their minds with subliminal images or whatever. However you do that sort of things, or whatever floats your boat in science fiction. That's how they do it.
Okay, all right. What about you? What's your next one?
Let me think. Yeah, because in science fiction, there's so many things that you can use in order to get the story to go.
Yep.
Let's see. All right, so I do like the scene in the supermarket. So one of the things
Loved it.
One of the things I really like. This one of the things I remembered about this movie, and one of the things that really got me to like Dolph Lundgren and his acting in this movie is the supermarket scene. So this is after he blows up the truck. There's a special semi truck that they use to transport the Universal soldiers, and that's where their beds are. That's where they regenerate. And this is after he kills the colonel, and one of the scientists blows up the truck, but GR13 is able to save two of the other soldiers, and I think one of them is tiny, and the other one I can't remember, but he drags them into the supermarket to put them in the freezer so that they can heal. And the police comes, and it's like he's ranting right before the police come. He's in the supermarket and he's kind of ranting at the shoppers, threatening them with his pistol and talking about how people are being disloyal and that there are traitors among us and whatnot. And then the police come in there and there's freeze, and he quickly shoots all the police that come in and oppose him, like barely even taking a breath from his speech. And he said, "See, they're everywhere," right?
Yeah, he was able to showcase his like unhinged madness in that scene. It was really good.
Yeah. And I like that. Remember, we said they only brought up the freezer a couple of times. So this is one of the times that they bring it up. When after, like, he dragged them to the freezer so that they wouldn't die. That was one of the things. The other time that they brought it up is closer to when they were hunting they were hunting Luke Devereaux and the girl that Christy, or I'm calling her Christy Alley, Veronica Roberts.
Yeah.
And they're hunting those two, and they escape the gas station. They blow up the gas station, and a bunch of the Unisols get caught on fire, and the colonel is going around trying to put them out with probably liquid nitrogen, so that he wouldn't like lose these $20 million soldiers. So I don't know how much these soldiers cost, but apparently it was a lot of money. He didn't want to lose them. So
yeah, they're on. Yeah, that was a pretty cool scene too, because they couldn't salvage them either. Right.
Yeah. Some of them couldn't be salvaged. So what's another one of yours? I've lost count of how many favorite parts we've supposed
I think this is probably my last one, because I have had similar ones.
Right.
Yeah, to you. I mean, the whole ending sequence, right? Like, it's pretty great, and it is very horror-esque. Like, so Luke and Veronica end up like going to what we think is his home in Louisiana, and his parents are like, "Oh my God." And then there's this reunion, and then the reporter girl has to go back to, I don't know, tell her story wherever she's going. She gets in the car. The keys aren't there, and there's like a jump scare. There's Dolph, or "My name is Sergeant Andrew Scott," is what he says when he takes over. I don't know. That was a great line. But so then from there on out, it's like this whole fight sequence between Dolph and Jean-Claude, which is really good. Ultimately, Dolph gets impaled on I don't know what piece of like farm equipment that was. Do you know?
Nope. I like, the word that comes to mind is a thresher, but I'm not exactly sure if that's what that is.
I feel like that tracks. So he gets impaled on this, and you're like, okay, well, he must be dead.
Right.
Nope. So there's a lot of like, you think someone's dead and they're not. And then Jean-Claude turns the machine on ultimately so he gets chopped up into bits and thrown out. But yeah, like, all the fight sequences are really good, and there's some humor in that. And it's also harkening back, like several times throughout the movie, they harken back to Jean-Claude's memory of that Vietnamese couple that Dolph Lundgren kills. And he tries to save the girl, and he tells her to run, but Dolph throws the grenade and it kills her. Well, the same thing happens in the rain, of course. Also, in this scene, the reporter girl has an opportunity to run, and he tells her to run, and Dolph throws the grenade, but she didn't die, of course. And yeah, I don't know. The end scene was pretty awesome end scene.
Right.
What'd you think?
Oh yeah, I absolutely loved it. I like it's kind of like the first ending was kind of like a false ending, because I hadn't seen this in a while, so it kind of caught me by surprise. So what happens is that in the scene before that, in the action sequence before that, it was like a chase scene. So Dolph was he was in a bus, or was he in a tractor trailer? I can't remember. He was in a very large vehicle.
Well, it was their.
It was their tractor trailer
vehicle,
right.
that semi-trailer thing.
Right. He was like when I said the guy had blew up the truck, he just set off a grenade inside the truck, but it didn't destroy the whole truck. It just destroyed that a portion of the trailer part. So they still had control of the tractor trailer. They were chasing people down. There was a fight sequence and everything. It was a cool sequence. I think there was a prison transport like that looked like a school bus.
A
bus because they had captured Luke and Veronica, and they were going to take him to jail or something. So that whole sequence is just amazing. And then at the end of that sequence, you had where basically Luke was able to maneuver the bus so that Andrew would drive the tractor trailer over the cliff and, crash at the bottom of the ravine or wherever they were at. And, that looks like the end of the movie. The bad guy suffers death by falling. So you think that the movie is over. And I thought, and the sequence was well enough where I figured that, I don't remember this movie ending this way. I was expecting a fight, but that's pretty good for an ending of a movie. And then what you were talking about, the scene where, he's home and he sees his parents and it's raining and at night and Veronica is with him and, it's like, okay, now guess I'm going to go back home or wherever she's going to go. And then that's when, Andrew shows up again and just start being a problem, right? Just
I'm back.
Right, he's back. And it's like, it kind of has that horror movie-esque type of shock ending. So that was cool. I like the way that made me feel like, I was like, oh my God, he's back. It's not over yet. They're going to fight some more. And well, here's something that I referenced before. I was just talking about. I just now realized. So we're talking about them not being able to feel pain. And I was saying that, well, in the beginning they didn't, but then near the end of the movie, it looks like mainly Luke is the one who's like feeling the pain. Like, he's getting hit and he's screaming in pain, that sort of thing. But then I remember there's a syringe of the muscle enhancer or whatever. So that must does something to dampen pain because Andrew is shooting himself up full of the stuff. He carries the syringes on him to make sure that he's fully loaded with the juices that makes him superior. And he's right.
It shows them like superhuman strength then.
Right. Yeah. And he's just owning Luke during the fight. And then Luke is able to get a hold and he shoots himself up. Now he's got some juice. And now he's able to fight back against Andrew and, kicks him into the thresher and then turns the thresher on. And then that's that. Andrew's not coming back from that.
Well, and then, there's some comedic stuff. Like, because then when he reunites with Veronica, she's like, where's Andrew Scott? And he's like, everywhere, or he's around, or something like that, because there's pieces of him everywhere.
Right. There are pieces of him everywhere.
She also references, there's like a tongue-in-cheek, where are you from? What's your accent? Are you French or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they poke fun. I actually appreciate when they don't try and make these guys try and not have an accent, but then a lot of Jean-Claude's movies have him be from like, why can't he just be from wherever he's from, like
Belgium, right? Or there are some movies,
or even France. Why is he got to be from? I mean, I guess Louisiana is the closest because there's some Frenchness to it.
Right. Yeah,
in a lot of his movies, like why you have him be from Texas? That doesn't make sense.
There's a couple movies, at least one movie where he is French, or they say he's from France, not necessarily Belgium. And that movie is Lionheart that I referenced earlier. But I don't know about all of his movies. But yeah, they always have to they have to address his accent. Well, they don't necessarily have to address his accent, but it'd be weird if they didn't. Like, if it'd be weird if they didn't talk about it.
Well, that's why I appreciated it in this. They're
Right.
like, hey, we recognize that this is a whole thing. But in other movies, they don't. He's just from some random American state, but he has an accent.
You just kind of assume that he's an immigrant, like from somewhere, and they don't address it, and they don't necessarily have to, because you know the United States is famously a nation of immigrants. So if somebody comes at you with an accent, you can just assume that they're either they or their parents aren't necessarily from here, that they immigrated here, and that's just how we accept people.
Well, it is true, but I feel like in a lot of movies he'll have a sibling.
Yeah.
That doesn't. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense.
That's a problem. Whenever he has a sibling that doesn't have a similar accent, that becomes a problem. That's like, well, we're not even going to address this plot hole.
Yeah,
or
parents or something. Yeah,
right.
It's
we're
like,
just
okay.
Right. So, yeah, that's the thing. Like when she meets him, she asks if he's from France or Quebec or something like that, and he doesn't know because he's, most of his memories are right. But yeah, that's the thing with him, Arnold Schwarzenegger. They didn't actually really do that with Dolph, because he's able to affect a very, how should I say that? It's a very convincing American accent.
Yeah, I thought so too. He was really, I really liked, I mean, Jean-Claude is good in this. But I think Dolph Lundgren doesn't get enough credit for his acting ability. And seeing this, I was like, wow, he pulls off this evil, maniacal ex-soldier really well.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That's another, if I would have a final favorite part, that would be Dolph Lundgren in this movie. He's so good in it to me. And I feel like he's so improved over the previous roles that he had been in. And it's like, I feel like he was taking the craft seriously because he had worked on his speech and his acting, and I just really liked him in the movie. And it's like he convinced me that he was just a soldier that was severely shell shocked. He had really bad PTSD. He needed medical attention and he just never got it. Right. And that's why he turned out the way he did. It was convincing to me, and that's why I enjoyed him in this movie. So yeah, he really killed it.
Well, Jerry Orbach tells us they get stuck, their emotional state gets stuck to where they were. So Jean-Claude has been trying to get home.
Right.
But Dolph still thinks he's in Vietnam. Like, he still thinks he's fighting insurgents.
Right. He thinks that there are traitors among them, and he's going to find all the traitors and he's going to kill them all, and he's going to cut their ears off and wear it as a necklace, and he's going to be stuck there. That's just where he lives. Yeah. That's terrible.
I did see in the special features, like the commentary, he did, to your point about him taking the craft seriously, he said he probably took it too seriously. Like, he had an acting coach with him, and he's like, for the longest time, I think I over prepared. But because he's like a super smart guy too in real life.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think he's like a physicist or something. He's like
chemical engineering.
Right.
Like from MIT.
Right.
Yeah.
He could have done other things. But it's like, it's one of those things where he's a Renaissance man.
He really is, because he was a karate champion.
Right.
He's a smoke show. He's like actually like a nice, he doesn't come off as like a Hollywood douchebag. He seems like a genuinely like nice person,
right.
down to earth, despite him looking the way he does and being, I don't know. Can you tell I'm a big fan of the Dolph Lundgren?
It's okay to like him. You have my permission. All right, so that's it for. Was there any more favorite parts before I go into the next segment?
No, I didn't know where. I don't know if we'll get to it or not. I did want to point out another piece of the special features that was wild to me. There was an alternate ending.
Okay, tell us about that. I didn't see that.
Okay, it's definitely different. So the alternate ending is that the parents, like the mom gets killed right away in the end sequence. And then once Jean-Claude reunites with Veronica, his dad shoots him because he's like, I have to stop you or something. And then you're like, what? Why is his dad shooting him? And then we see Jerry Orbach and all these other like trench coat machine gunned guys just spraying him with bullets. And Jerry Orbach says, I had to make it seem real. These aren't actually your parents. Your parents still think you're missing in action. You know, this was a setup because we had to get you guys together. We had to kill you both, like end the mission, because Jerry Orbach was the doctor who kind of started it, and he realized this had gone wrong and he needed to end it. Then the police swarm in and arrest all those guys, Jerry Orbach and his guys. And then it's like a voiceover of Veronica talking about the rest of Luke's life. Like somehow Luke just got sprayed with bullets and goes on to live as like he lives, but as a regular aging human. Like that, it kind of didn't make sense. Like the bit about we set you up and like that was kind of good, but then the way that it ended with her voiceover and his happy ever after was a little odd. But yeah, that was the alternate ending.
I think that one of the series of sequels is played off one of the alternate endings. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
So now that we've delved into the possibilities of what could have been at the end of Universal Soldier, let's continue this trend with the top 10 trivia.
So both Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren attended the 1992 Cannes Film Festival in order to promote this film. Just outside the festival hall, Van Damme and Lundgren were shown having an argument and then pushing and threatening each other before security guards intervened and stopped them. This brawl between the two became a talking point for the media and was reported on many news channels. However, years later, Lundgren revealed in an interview that it was all staged to garner publicity for this movie. Van Damme also confirmed this on a 2018 podcast. I feel like I've heard this before, but it's wild. Like, just makes you wonder all the things that aren't real.
Yeah,
publicity stunt stuff.
Yeah, even back in the 1990s, people will create their own fake news.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny Lester, or I keep messing his name up, is Lister, because it wouldn't be an E, would it? Tiny Lister had his eyepiece custom made because the regular eyepiece's design was blocking his good eye. So it's just like, I can't wear this. I'm totally blind. What are you doing?
Oh, funny.
That is funny.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Nearly all of the ice required for filming, an estimated 400 kilograms, came from a local 7-Eleven in Arizona. Manager of that store, Joaquim Alvarez, was even invited on a tour of the Nugget Ice Corporation factory, as his sales figures were so impressively high.
Right.
He sold them all the ice. That's fun.
Yeah, he sold them so much ice. It's like, can you get some more ice? Yeah, I bet I can, buddy. So Dolph Lundgren and Ralph Moeller co-starred together in this film. Years later, both actors auditioned for the role of Hagen in Gladiator. Lundgren lost the role due to director Ridley Scott being unimpressed by his acting, and Moeller ended up winning the role. So I found this interesting because we talk about how impressed we were with Dolph Lundgren, and Ralph Moeller, he's basically just a kind of background guy, right? We don't normally think of him as an actor or even as like a character actor. He's really just kind of like the big dude in the background. Mm-hmm. And you have Ridley Scott saying, no, I like this guy better. So I don't know if you remember the role that Ralph Moeller played in Gladiator.
Vaguely. Yeah. I mean, he has more of that look. I get, but I could totally see Dolph doing it too. I don't know.
Yeah. Either one of them could have done it.
Yeah.
So Ralph was he was the guy that had befriended the main gladiator. What's his name? Maximus. So and he was the biggest gladiator in the thing. So they kind of like fought together and whatnot. There was a scene where Moeller's character pretended to choke Maximus, as a joke or whatever. So, because they were just joking and laughing and whatnot. So I remember that scene from Gladiator. But the thing I remember about Moeller, besides his gigantic frame is his impressive chin. Like he's a huge chin, and so you can't you can't miss it.
Yeah, he's got a look to him for sure.
Right. He's got a particular look.
The Unisols are often viewed as cyborgs, mainly due to their weaponry and eyepieces. However, due to the program requiring the subjects to be deceased, they are technically zombies.
Yeah. I never thought of them as zombies until I just did this rewatching it, when I realized that, oh yeah, they're dead and they got brought back to life. It follows more closely like how the original like Haitian myths about zombies, about how they're dead people and then they're brought back to life with magic to be slaves. Like their purpose is to do manual labor for the person who brings it back to life. So that is similar to what's happening in this movie.
Very much so.
This is director Roland Emmerich's 5th film and his first American film. So he got his skills in. He was over in Germany just churning out art and refining his craft, and it's like, now I'm going to go over to America and show them what I can really do.
And he did.
Yes, yeah. And he did. I hope that he gives us something fantastic in this next movie.
Mm-hmm. So this film would go on to spawn a series with 2 made-for-TV sequels and 3 theatrical sequels. I did not know that. The 2 made-for-TV sequels are Universal Soldier 2, Brothers in Arms from 98, and Universal Soldier 3, Unfinished Business, also from 98. The 3 theatrical sequels. I wonder how this works. Like, what's canon? Okay. The 3 theatrical sequels are Universal Soldier The Return from 99 and Universal Soldier Regeneration 2009 and Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning from 2012. I have not seen any of these, but I think Jean-Claude Son is in one or more of them, right?
I have no idea. But and I saw a chart that talked about how these are canon.
Okay.
So here's the deal. They're not all canon at the same time. Some of these are kind of like reboots of not the whole series, but just of the sequel. So for example, you got to think of them as like 3 timelines. So in all 3 timelines, Universal Soldier is the main movie. So that's always canon. And then from that, you can either go the direction of the Brothers in Arms series. So you had Universal Soldier 2, Brothers in Arms, and Universal Soldier 3, Unfinished Business. I'm not sure why they're referred to as made for TV sequels, because I think these were direct to DVD sequels. And
okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's one branch. There's another branch that is Universal Soldier The Return. And I think that it's just that and the original movie. And that's one where, like in the made-for-TV movies or the direct-to-DVD movies, there were different actors that were chosen for Luke Devereaux and Andrew Scott, and there were no new actors. Well, there were no returning actors from the original movie. That's what I meant to say. But in the theatrical version, The Return, Van Damme returns, and I remember that movie coming out, but I never got around to seeing it.
Was Dolph Lundgren in it, or did they have someone or no? Because he's dead, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay. Oh gosh.
And then in Universal Soldier, and then there's a different timeline where you have Regeneration and Day of Reckoning. So this ignores what happens in The Return, and it starts a different timeline. So it goes from the original movie to Regeneration to Day of Reckoning. So let's talk about Dolph Lundgren. So this film is of 6 films that Van Damme and Lundgren co-star together. The 5 films that follow are Universal Soldier Regeneration, The Expendables 2, Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning, Blackwater, and Minions: The Rise of Groot. So
oh really? Oh, I've never seen that. But
The Rise of Groot.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it either. So I don't remember.
Oh, that's fun. I don't think I realized that. I think Blackwater is like a really awful, like one of those direct to video action movies that's like really made for the foreign market. Like it's one of those really bad ones, I think.
Yeah. So as you can see with he comes back as Andrew Scott in Regeneration and Reckoning. So
interesting.
In this version of the movie, they take his, I believe it's a clone. They decided that the perfect Universal Soldier is going to be a clone of the original Andrew Scott, who in the original movie was a homicidal maniac. But they say, no, this guy, of all the dead Universal Soldiers, we're going to get this guy, the crazy one. He caused
a lot of ruckus. Let's do that again.
Right. They could have made a clone of Tiny Lister. I'm sure his body parts are laying around somewhere. And he was always obedient. He never malfunctioned. He was never considered crazy. But no, that's not the one they want. They want the crazy one.
So they just had his DNA. Okay. You know what I actually what I would want, based on my question about what's been happening in the last 20 years, I want the prequel. What's been happening in the last 20 years between Vietnam and 92?
You want to see the sequences where they're developing the Unisol program. You want to see the colonel going to Congress and whatnot, or going to his commanders like, we need this dead soldier program, and then they're kicking him out the office, and he's like I'll show you. The experiments. And then they're experimenting on dead rats and bringing dead rats back to life, and then the rats turn rabbit.
No, I don't want that. I want
and then they're like, this formula didn't work, we can't use the dead rats anymore, we got to start all over again from the beginning. And
I want to see the dead bodies there, what they do with them for the last 20 years.
Right. All right, so I guess you can get the next piece of trivia.
Universal Soldier is one of two films that Jean-Claude Van Damme plays a Louisiana Cajun Special Forces veteran. The other one was as Chance Boudreaux. This one was also like a EAUX too. Blanche Devereaux.
Yeah. It's the same pronunciation.
The other one was Chance Boudreaux, a former Marine reconnaissance operative and unemployed merchant marine in 1993's Hard Target.
Right. So that's something that I am going to cover in episode 143. What we're recording right now is, I think it's 142. I can't remember. I just read it at the top of the program and I've already forgotten. But it's already recorded. I'm going to be editing it this weekend and releasing it Monday. So by the time you hear this, it's already out.
Ooh, I look forward to that one.
Yeah, Hard Target was, I had fun recording that. So here's the thing. With you had referenced the last part of Boudreaux, the REAUX. That sounds like O. What's funny is that Rambo is related to that, because when the author had created the character, he gave him the last name Rambo because he had heard, I think somebody else's name was Rambo, but it's spelled with the French ending with
like
the
Bo.
With the EAUX that sounds like O. So that's how. So he gave John Rambo the name Rambo, but not with that spelling. But that's where the name comes from. And but there is another character that people are familiar with whose name is Monica Rambeau, and her name has the ending EAUX at the end of her name. And people know her because she's in a Marvel film. She doesn't get a superhero name, but in the comics, her superhero name is Spectrum or Photon or a bunch of other names that it could be.
Spectrum is kind of, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. But there is an actual Rambo connection to this movie because Mario Kassar is the producer. Right. And he produced all of the Rambo movies too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he has an eye for the action stuff.
Yeah.
He gave Roland Emmerich a chance.
Yeah, he did.
Finally, we have this last bit of trivia. The idea of the eyepieces that were the Universal Soldiers wear in the movie was borrowed from Star Trek The Next Generation. In that series, one of the main villains are the Borg, a collection of human and alien cyborgs. Most of these cyborgs wore eyepieces that are similar to the ones seen in the film. And all of us Star Trek fans know what that looks like, and they got that, and so that's where they borrowed the eyepiece look from in the Universal Soldier. In this movie, they're kind of like just headgear that you can wear, and it's like a high tech piece of glasses, I guess, or they function as like a telescope, as a transmitter. It's fancy. They do all types of things. But in the Star Trek series, it's like they're built into
part of them.
Yes, part of the cyborg.
Okay. So. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I also read that the gas station that they exploded in the movie was they actually exploded that gas station.
Yeah. I'm glad they did. There aren't enough explosions in the way.
Yeah, no, I like practical effect. That's also part of why I like this. I really, really, really dislike the overuse of CGI nowadays. And so I like the practical effects.
I don't mind it as long as I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like if it's so convincing that I don't know it's CGI, then I'm fine with it. Because that's the whole purpose of it, is to make it look real without it actually being real. And I think the problem is
I can tell. You can always tell.
Not necessarily. Like there is Godzilla -1, and that uses a lot of CGI. Now you would think that the obvious CGI is Godzilla himself, like the actual monster. But I looked at behind the scenes, and there were so many scenes that were CGI that were not actually real, because they didn't have the budget to do that. Like there was a lot of like boats on. They couldn't do boats a lot. They couldn't do certain. There's a scene where a ship leaves the harbor, and that had to be CGI because they didn't have the budget for a big boat. But you don't know that, because that's not what you're looking for in the CGI. You're looking for Godzilla. He's like, okay, I know that's CGI, but you're not paying attention to the boat right here. And it's a huge scene. And but you wouldn't know it until you watch the behind the scenes of the making of the movie. The same thing goes with Mad Max Fury Road. There's a lot of scenes where they had used CGI to enhance like the dust and the dust storms and all that sort of thing.
Oh, sure.
And you wouldn't know it. So there, not only is there a place for it, but it's like, as long as you don't know, because when you get enough time, when the artist has enough time to perfect the image, then it's indistinguishable from real life. But a lot of the problem comes from the artist just not having enough time, or the directors not being experienced enough with the format to give the artist enough time. Because a lot of times what happens is that the director will want to do like a scene in the desert, and then he changes his mind and he does a scene in the jungle, and the artists don't have enough time to render a brand new scene. And so when they do it, it's not going to look right. It's going to look like garbage because they didn't have enough time to render it properly. So I think that when people start to have respect for the time and work that it takes to render the images, then it'll be more realistic.
Okay.
So let's go on to our next segment. We're going to talk about what the critics thought. The critics gave it a 34%. The audience has it at 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. The IMDb reviews has it at 6.5 out of 10. This is surprising. How do you feel about that?
Well, so I usually, I only on my show, I only compare the IMDb. So I'm like 6.5. I'm kind of surprised it's not at least 7, but the Rotten Tomatoes 46% audience. I'm like shocked the audience didn't like this more. Right. What do you think? What's going on here?
I am shocked at both the critic score and the audience score. I'm shocked at both of these. This is way lower than I would have.
I'm not surprised that critics didn't like it. Like that doesn't surprise me, but I'm surprised the audience didn't.
Well, I'm surprised that it's so low. Like 34% is super low. I didn't expect that. And the audience score, like, because it's one of those things where, like, after you see the movie, you talk to your friends, all your friends like it, and there wasn't really like an online presence, so it's not like you could see what the wider world looks like. You only know what it's like between you and your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So we all liked it. So we thought it was the greatest thing, and so so I just took it as this being a super popular movie, but apparently not as popular as I imagined it was. But I still like it.
This is a bit perplexing too, because it had multiple sequels, and you don't make a sequel on a movie that people don't like.
Yeah, well, it made a lot of money. So there are even movies that people generally say are really bad that sometimes like mysteriously make a lot of money. So there are a lot of comic book movies that make a super huge amount of money that critics generally don't like and audiences complain about, but they'll continue to make sequels. Okay.
Well, I'm on that. Yeah.
Right.
And that's like a weird feedback loop that I wish would stop, because I don't like all the
superhero movies.
I don't like them. I'm not a fan. Okay. Well, Jonathan Rosenbaum from the Chicago Reader, he says that both Van Damme and Lundgren are about as interesting as soup cans. So the main appeal of the picture is waiting for these soup cans to puncture or flatten each other in ever more horrific ways. You can go F yourself, Jonathan Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I feel like this is one where he's not a super fan of the action genre.
Yeah. Well, Andrew Pollard from Starbust, he says cringe-inducing dialogue, ? Tick. Lots of shit being blown up, ? Double tick. Flexing of muscles as the stars of the day indulge in a display of cinematic cockfighting, ? Triple tick. Yeah, these are people that just don't like these like muscly action movies, right?
You know what's funny is that this was actually a what do you call them? A ripe tomato. This is a ripe tomato review.
I mean, what do you expect? Like, this is what I mean. Okay, so we're not comparing this to like The Godfather. Like, you got to know what kind of movie this is. Like, it's not supposed to be winning Oscars. So I don't know. That's my issue with reviewers sometimes.
Right. I can understand there are some people that are wanting more depth. Like, even you could look at a movie like The Terminator, and it has a little bit more depth than this movie, or something like I'm stuck on the Terminator series. Like, okay, or even Bloodsport has a little bit more depth than this movie, so I can understand how some people might feel about it.
I'm one of those people. I want more depth to my movie too, but I actually don't think this was the shallowest of movie. I mean, I think there was some stuff there.
Right, I think so too. So Brian Orndorff from BrianOrndorff.com wrote, "There's a decent bit of escapism in here somewhere, but Emmerich doesn't possess the finesse to make the material rampage as it should." So
I do agree that just based on a few of the other, like Emmerich, finesse is a good way of putting it. Yeah. I do think there's he's not the most finessed of directors.
Right. And finally, we have Luke Y. Thompson from New Times wrote, "Roland Emmerich's best film and Lundgren's best acting job. Admittedly, that ain't saying much in either case, but a fun flick all in all." So, yeah.
Oh, at first I thought they. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. I haven't seen all of Lundgren's films. I like I said, I want to see what he's doing in Creed. I want to see what he's doing in the Showdown in Little Tokyo. I want to see that to kind of compare. But from all of the movies that I've seen him in so far, I was like, yeah, this is the best one so far. I
can see that. Except he's freaking great in Rocky IV, like his first break. And people will say, we didn't say much, but he did so much nonverbal acting.
Right.
For like a 26 or 7-year-old kid. I don't know. I was impressed.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I'm a big fan, so I'm
Right,
going to come
right,
to his
right. Yeah, you're
defense.
kind of
But
skewed in his direction
yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
so
yeah, I
that's
am.
understandable. Maybe you'll like him in Aquaman.
I've not seen it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do you recommend?
it's hard. It's hard to recommend because it might be a little too much. Like, it's a simple story, but it's one of the most superhero movies that you'll ever see. But
Oh,
it's a fun movie. Like, it has God, I forget people's names. So hold on, let me see if I can remember his name. Jason Momoa. I got it. I found his name.
oh yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah.
has Jason Momoa. He is so fun to watch. He's a fun, he's like laid back. He plays like the laid back Aquaman. He's like the reluctant
Hmm.
hero, and he's fun to watch. He's fun to follow around. He's really good at his both his acting and his action sequences. But like I said, there's a lot of they use, it's heavily loaded with superhero tropes, so it's kind of hard to recommend
Okay,
that film. Like, if I
okay.
were to recommend like a film for people who are doubtful about superhero movies, I would recommend something like Spider-Man Homeland. No, what's it called? Homecoming. I said Homeland. Or The Boys. Either one of those.
Is that the TV series?
Yeah, there's a TV series called The Boys. I would definitely recommend that. But I would also, like, if you wanted something more conventional, I would recommend at least look at Spider-Man Homecoming and see if that means anything. If you don't like Spider-Man Homecoming, then it's like, yeah, I guess you don't like superhero movies.
Okay,
Or
okay.
there's one more I can recommend. It's called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It is an animated film. It is those are a little bit easier to ingest because they are animated.
Yeah,
But what's great about about the they're called Into the Spider-Verse movies. So there's that one. There's one called Across the Spider-Verse that just came out, and then there's a part 2 to that movie that should be coming out, I guess, next year. So in the Spider-Verse movies, they have a lot of superhero tropes, but it's already animated, so it's easier to ingest.
yeah.
But what people like about them, or at least what I like about it, is the emotion that they invoke as you watch it. There's a lot of
Hmm.
family stuff. There's a lot of being connections that are being established and broken, and that sort of thing. And then there's a lot of fun in the movie. Uh, so there's a lot of humor in it that's so there are some, and then there are full character arcs, right? So on the one hand you have the touchy feely stuff, the other hand you have the humor, and the other hand you have the the character arc
Okay.
that's fully formed, and it all works in that movie, and it's a joy. And it's also uh Lloyd, and what's his name, something in Lloyd. They did the Lego movie. If you ever seen any of those Lego movies. Oh, okay. I
Mhm.
haven't either. They did 21 Jump Street, if you ever watched that.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it there's a kind of the same temperature. Like
Okay.
watching the 21 Jump Street movie, you'll get to understand what this movie is, the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movies. So yeah, so I would recommend that, or even Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie. That's another one that's kind
Most
of
people speak highly of that one.
right.
Yeah.
That's easy to recommend because it doesn't have a lot of it's like in the earlier like superhero movies, they didn't want to step too much into the superhero stuff. They wanted to keep it as grounded as possible and kind of
Yeah.
slowly kind of entice people to come into it. So really it's a regular man, and he's wearing a suit of armor. So that, and the suit of armor can fly, and it can shoot bullets and missiles and lasers and stuff. That
Mhm.
can easily be any sci-fi movie, right? A
Mhm.
sci-fi movie where a person gets into a mech or flies a special jet or something like that. So it's easier for people to get into. But then when you get into something like Aquaman, like I mentioned earlier, that's like it's a whole different level of acceptance. Like you have to you have to have already drank the Kool-Aid before you're able to
Oh, okay. Okay.
enjoy. I mean, like, I think that there's some people that can enjoy Aquaman, but like I said, it has a lot of stuff that, like, there was a guy, his wife was he was trying to introduce his wife to science fiction, and but the movies he chose, they were too much, right? They were too hard. Like, he got his wife to watch Guardians of the Galaxy, and she just didn't get it, and that's because he did not choose wisely when it comes to
you gotta ease a person into your genre. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can't start them off with the hottest possible pepper. You gotta start them off with something like a habanero pepper or something, and then a chili pepper. You kind of work your way up to the ghost pepper. You can't feed them the ghost pepper on the first go.
This was my universul soldier. You were trying to, I feel like you're trying to ease me in.
Yeah. I think the next step is Soldier, since you're going to cover Kurt Russell anyway. So like I said, I look forward to you checking that out.
I'm kind of scared I won't like it now that but I'm going to keep an open mind.
It's a little bit deeper, but it's not that. It's, like I said, it's very similar to Universal Soldier and some of the themes that it covers. So
well, you usually can't go wrong with Kurt because he's also very nice to look at.
Yeah. At the very least, you get to look at Kurt Russell with a crew cut. At the very least, you got that.
Yeah.
for about an hour and 40 minutes or something.
I could do that.
All right. So finally, Universal Soldier is, as of this recording, available on streaming. That's it for today. Next week, we want to rock you. So join us as I welcome Derek McDuff from the Underrated Podcast as we rock you with Amadeus, 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 Amadeus. Yeah, that's right. We're going to cover the movie Amadeus. You can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlickcinema.com. Katie, do you have any additional plugs?
I would just invite you to come join me on Retromade to get a little pop culture rewind wherever you find your podcasts, people, or on YouTube, and follow me on Facebook, Retromade Podcast. We do some fun stuff. I like the nostalgia. I like it. So come join me. Come join me on my journey.
Absolutely. One last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. And as our guest Katie said, please join her on Retromade or One More Round, the Rocky Series podcast. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe, share a movie from yesterday with the family, hug your loved ones, and if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.